Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel can hit all of Iran's nuclear sites, including Fordow, without help from the United States.
President Trump will do what's best for America. I trust his judgment. He's a tremendous friend, a tremendous world leader, a tremendous friend of Israel and the Jewish people. And we will do what we have to do, and we are doing it. We are committed to destroying the nuclear threat, the threat of a nuclear annihilation against Israel. We're able to do it. And we, of course, will make our own determination.
But some military analysts say that America's bunker buster bomb is the only thing that has a chance at destroying Fordow, which is believed to be more than 200 feet underground. The bomb can only be delivered by American B-2 stealth planes. General Keane, so the White House official told Fox News that the U.S. Air Force has no doubt about the efficacy of this massive ordnance penetrator. They also say no option's been taken off the table, including tactical nukes. What do you think is the best way forward in terms of the weapon to use to destroy Fordow?
Well, I think this is the best weapon. I mean, Prime Minister Netanyahu, in terms of dealing with his domestic audience and his obligation to protect them against all weapons out there, is making those statements with that in regard. I mean, he does have options. He can do a commando-type raid on the facility, put an air cap of fighters over it while they go down. And it takes time, blow up a facility of that. And can he get those people out of there unharmed is another issue. There's a lot more risk. They can hit the electric grid that drives the centrifuges and the ventilation system as well. But all of those may be able to achieve an end result with a fair amount of risk. The best option is the option that you're talking about, is the MOP, so to speak, because of its vast capability to distribute this, bring the system down. We don't know for certain because we've never used it on a mountain of rock like that where the facility is 300 feet into the ground. But it still remains the best option. You don't walk away from it because it may not be perfect. Eisenhower was going into Normandy, and the chances, he said it out loud, probably 50-50. What was the alternative? We lose the war.
Yeah.
What's the alternative here? They get a nuclear weapon? Of course we're going to try it. I mean, the president offered to Prime Minister Netanyahu about a week or two ago, he said, if you need our help, let us know.
Yeah. Cheryl has a question for you, but right before we get to that, I just want to ask you to address a chief criticism that I have heard of those who fear forever wars. There's been the suggestion, I think President Trump's made it clear, look, I'm not trying to take out Khamenei right now. I'm not asking for regime change. I'm looking at this strike. Is it possible to separate the two and ensure a forever war does not happen, but that Iran does not get nuclear weapons with a strike on Fordow?
Yeah, I really find this argument quite shallow and a bit absurd. Yes, Iraq and Afghanistan, these are the cases that are referred to forever wars. Those were choices to go in and take a regime down. I'm not going to relitigate the reasons. Take a regime down in both cases, physically take them down, occupy the country, and rebuild the country so it can survive on its own. That became, quote, a forever war or a protracted war. What do we have on the table here? This is Israel's war against Iran. They have no intentions whatsoever of putting a ground force into Iran, of decapitating the regime physically or in occupying Iran. And we certainly have none of those options on the table. All we are doing is participating in Israel's war. And we want to do one thing. In addition to providing intelligence and logistics, a lot of munitions that they're using came from us. They want us to take down a target for them that they don't have certainty they can destroy. A target. And what I think the message should be to the Ayatollah from the president is, we intend to do this limited strike in Israel's war. We are not going to war with you. We are supporting our partner. However, if you retaliate against us, then you're going to get war from the United States. And you will suffer the consequences. And that war will be an air and maritime strike on him. There would be no intention to go in there, invade the country, change the regime, and occupy it. That's off the table. And we should stop talking about a forever war being the outcome of one limited airstrike.
General, I wanted to ask you about Israel's military capabilities. There's some new analysis this morning from the Wall Street Journal. It talks about the weight on the Israeli economy and also on their forces because of the amount of attacks they're conducting on Iran right now. These interceptor missiles that they're using, those are $200 million a day that it's costing them. Building repairs that we're seeing with the damage, that's $400 million. And they say that in general, that the Israelis only have about 4 weeks, and that would be a $12 billion hit to them economically, as well as they are going through these weapons and these missiles. Is there a way for the United States to facilitate help on that end? And also the other issue is, you mentioned Iran and the Houthis in the top of the show. I wanted to ask you about this because the U.S. Treasury just sanctioned a bunch of Houthi-tied organizations that are going after the oil revenue. Yeah,
modern warfare is very expensive, and you've seen it when we're using our weapon systems, how expensive they are. And when we're using $1 million weapon system to shoot a drone out of the air that costs $5,000 or something like that, there's something wrong with that picture. But the reality is, Israel has never been down this road before, since their existence in 1948. In their minds, this is definitely a protracted war. Their military is organized around a small active duty force to fight something that is not going to be elongated. They bring in where the majority of the force is their reserves, and their plan is 40 days at the max. Well, look where we are. And that has taken a toll on their society in a way that no other war prior to this has. All of those wars have lasted weeks. This one has lasted months and now going into years. So that is an economic burden. I think it's a psychological and emotional burden. I think the fact that the hostages, given the numbers they took and the length of time that they're still in captivity, has captured the nation quite seriously in terms of their compassion for what has taken place. Remember the one soldier that they held for over a year, and the whole nation was involved in getting that soldier back. They were all committed to it emotionally and psychologically, and they returned 1,000 prisoners to get that one soldier back. Was nothing short of remarkable. It gives you a sense. Look at, this is a country of 9 million people, about 7, 8 million Jews there. This is the smallest tribe on the planet. This is about destroying the state of Israel, that small tribe, and making it such a volatile security situation that parents don't want to raise their children there and their grandchildren, and they migrate out. That is the Ayatollah's objective, short of the nuclear bomb. And that's what October the 7th was all about, is creating that kind of volatility and that emotional impact. So yes, as the longer this goes on, it is a burden, financial burden and an emotional burden for the Israelis to deal with it. That's why I think it's so important, for the President of the United States and other allies to wrap their arms around the Israelis and let them know we're here for you. We're gonna be there for you. And it's an emotional thing for them to receive that message. I'll never forget Les Walzenza, who I had in front of me. He was telling a story when they were rebelling against the communists, and he was the welder who did that, eventually became president. And tears started to come down his eyes when he said, Reagan, I heard his voice. I heard his voice. He was there for us, not with guns. He was there with American emotional and psychological support. We are behind you. This is critical for the Israelis. They got to know we're there for them. And this horrible thing that's spreading around the planets in this city and other places of anti-Semitism is just outrageous. And all of us, Jews, non-Jews, Gentiles, Muslims, we got to speak out about it. It is outrageous. The people have in mind the destruction of the Jewish race is what is behind this stuff. It's not just Israel. And that is horrific. And God-loving people like the rest of us need to stand up against it.
That is so well said. And if you don't understand that, just look up 9-month-old Kafir Bibis, his coffin, which was returned, 4-year-old Ariel Bibis, his mom, Shiri, all killed, the husband, Yarden, surviving without his little infants by his side.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.